what is the voice inside a four-time world champion's head actually worth? I mean, really think about that. Because according to the latest moves we are seeing from McLaren, it is worth tearing up contracts, fronting millions in corporate buyouts, and basically risking an all-out paddock-wide war.
Oh, absolutely. It's an earthquake.
Right. So welcome to the Deep Dive, everyone. Today we are looking at a story that dropped right in the middle of the Easter break, completely upending the entire Formula One landscape. Gianpiero Lambiase, universally known as GP, Max Verstappen's legendary race engineer, he's leaving Red Bull Racing, and he's joining McLaren.
It is, without a doubt, the ultimate power play in modern Formula One. I mean, you do not just extract a central figure like GP from the Red Bull ecosystem without the entire foundation cracking.
Yeah.
We are witnessing a monumental transfer of intellectual property, of strategic leadership, and frankly, psychological dominance. And it's all shifting directly from one garage right into the hands of their fiercest rivals.
Exactly. And, we've got a massive stack of internal knowledge to guide us through this today. We are pulling from the official, and by the way, highly contradictory, April 9th press releases from both Red Bull and McLaren.
Oh, Claire.
Plus, we've got deep paddock insights and hours of historical telemetry and trackside communication analysis.
Because we really need to look under the hood here.
Right. Our mission today is to decode what this actually means for the sport. Because let's be real, we aren't just looking at some standard HR announcement. We are investigating the total real-time collapse of the Red Bull dynasty, the absolute strategic genius of McLaren's talent acquisition, and the looming question for Milton Keynes. What on earth is Max Verstappen going to do next?
That is the multi-million-dollar question.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Before we look at the broader fallout, we need to establish the baseline here. GP joined Red Bull back in 2015. By 2016, he became Verstappen's race engineer. And they have been just totally inseparable ever since.
Yeah, and if you listen to the radio traffic over the years, the dynamic between those two is entirely unique.
Oh, it's wild.
Right. It isn't a traditional driver-engineer relationship where the engineer is just this calming, subservient data provider. It's aggressive. It's intense.
Sometimes it genuinely sounds like a bitter argument playing out live on global television.
Exactly. You're listening to them at 300 kilometers an hour, and they're barking at each other. But the thing is, it yields absolute, terrifying perfection.
Yeah.
GP is literally the only human being on the planet who can get on the radio and tell Max Verstappen to shut up, put his head down, and manage his tires without Max completely losing his temper.
Right. But his value goes so far beyond just being the guy who knows how to talk to the star driver. And this is where the mechanics of his job get really fascinating.
It's the structural side of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In 2022, and then formalized even further in 2024, GP became the head of race engineering for the entire Red Bull team. And so he wasn't just talking to Max, he was coordinating the entire trackside operation.
Every single piece of data.
Right. We are talking about synthesizing aerodynamics, chassis setup, powertrain integration, and all the simulation data for both cars on the grid. He basically became the ultimate filter. I was thinking about this, and it feels like having an orchestra conductor who is also, playing the first violin.
That's a really good way to put it.
But actually, I want to push back on Red Bull's internal structure a bit here. Wait, isn't it a massive conflict of interest to run the whole team's race engineering while being the dedicated voice in just one driver's ear?
Oh, completely.
Right, like, no wonder Yuki Tsunoda was complaining that he couldn't get GP's attention to discuss his car setups.
Well, I actually look at it a bit differently. I mean, it is absolutely a conflict of interest on paper, no doubt. But you have to look at why Red Bull structured it that way in the first place.
Okay, why?
They didn't just allow it because GP is a genius. They allowed it because Verstappen's specific driving style relies so heavily on real-time front-end telemetry.
Because he likes that incredibly pointy front end.
Exactly. He needs the car to bite instantly on turn-in, and separating the engineering roles would have slowed down their trackside response time.
So it's about latency.
100%. GP needed to see the macro data, like what the aero sensors were saying, what the suspension load cells were doing on both sides of the garage, and then instantly feed that into micro adjustments for Max without, waiting for a committee decision on the pit wall.
Wow. So losing GP isn't just losing a voice. It's like ripping the motherboard out of a server rack.
That's exactly what it is.
He is the routing hub where aero data, tire degradation metrics, and driver feedback all cross paths. And if that motherboard is suddenly functioning inside a papaya-colored chassis instead, Red Bull loses its entire central nervous system.
Which brings an immediate massive problem to Red Bull's pit wall, because they trusted him to manage that inherent conflict of interest since the results were just undeniable.
4 world championships kind of speak for themselves.
Right. But now, McLaren has that brain. And Red Bull has this massive operational void. I mean, who steps up to process that volume of data in real time?
Nobody currently there, that's for sure. Which actually brings us to the timing, and here's where it gets really interesting for you listening at home.
The contract dispute.
Yes. Because GP is so vital to that data flow, the exact date he leaves is becoming an absolute battleground. Red Bull released their official statement, and they were very, very specific.
Very defensive.
Yeah, they insisted Lambiase will leave in 2028 when his current contract expires, stating he will fulfill all his duties until then.
Right.
But then we read McLaren's statement, and it's a completely different narrative. They announce he will join as chief racing officer no later than 2028.
No later than.
I mean, read between the lines there. If Red Bull says 2028, why is McLaren leaving the door wide open for an earlier start? Are they planning to just slide a blank check across the table to buy out his 2027 contract and bypass the gardening leave entirely?
That's the only logical conclusion here. This is a brilliant, highly public war of words between Zach Brown and Christian Horner.
Oh, it's brutal.
It is. Red Bull is trying to project strength to their remaining sponsors and staff. They're basically saying, he is ours until the clock runs out.
Posturing.
Exactly. But McLaren saying no later than 2028 is a massive flex of financial and political muscle. You have to remember, in modern Formula One, especially with the new active aero and that 50-50 electrical split in the upcoming 2026 regulations.
Which is a total paradigm shift for the engines.
Huge shift. And because of that, a year of gardening leave makes an engineer's technical knowledge completely obsolete.
Because the development curve is just that steep.
Exactly. The game moves too fast. McLaren knows this. They are signaling to the paddock, and crucially, they are signaling to Verstappen that they have the unlimited resources required to orchestrate an early exit.
They want him fresh.
They want GP walking through the doors in woking sharp and ready to deploy Red Bull's deepest correlation secrets on day one, not a year later when the data is stale.
It's incredibly ruthless. And honestly, it's a level of aggression we just haven't seen from McLaren in years.
Yeah.
They are playing for blood.
They really are.
But, we can't look at this tension over GP's contract in a vacuum. If we pan out, we're witnessing a mass exodus. Red Bull right now feels like a Jenga tower where someone just yanked out the most critical bottom block.
The whole thing is swaying.
It really is. I mean, look at the names who have walked out the door recently. The legendary designer Adrian Newey, Jonathan Wheatley, who practically wrote the book on sporting regulations and pit crew operations, Rob Marshall, Will Courtney, the historical cornerstones like Christian Horner and Helmut Marko. It's an absolute brain drain.
And those departures, they aren't just names on a Wikipedia page, right? They are structural failures.
Explain that. What do you mean by structural failures?
Well, when you lose someone like Rob Marshall, you don't just lose a chief engineering officer. You lose the specific, intricate methodologies of how the factory integrates with trackside operations.
The actual workflow.
Right. When Newey leaves, the aerodynamic philosophy splinters. The core DNA of the team is fragmenting because the institutional memory is literally walking out the door.
Wow. And it's not just the high-level executives either. The micro-level support is vanishing too.
Which nobody is talking about.
Exactly. Like Max's front-end mechanic, Ole Schack, a guy who hasn't missed a single race since 2005, is leaving in 2026. The people turning the actual wrenches are abandoning ship.
And that is arguably just as damaging because let's think about the psychological impact of losing someone like Ole.
Yeah, put us in the cockpit.
Okay, you are strapping into a machine pulling 5 Gs through Cop's corner. You are relying entirely on the precision of the guy who bolts your front wing on.
Literally, your life is in his hands.
Exactly. And when that guy who has been your baseline of safety for your entire career just says, you know what, I've had enough, I'm out, that destroys your trust in the machinery.
Wow, I never thought about it like that.
You cannot drive a Formula One car at the absolute limit if you are even slightly second-guessing the torque on your suspension wishbones. It completely destroys a driver's baseline comfort.
And you can see it destroying Max right now. He is openly miserable with the new 2026 regulations.
Oh, he hates them.
He does. The cars are heavy. The power delivery from the new hybrid systems is clunky. I mean, he recently stared right down a camera lens during an interview and told the world, quote, "This isn't racing, it's a joke."
Yeah, that was explosive.
Now, his contract runs until 2028. But as we know from the internal chatter, he has an escape clause tied to the team's performance. If they aren't in the top 2 in the constructors, he can walk.
Which is looking increasingly likely.
Right. So what does this all mean for Max? He has literally no allies left in the garage. His mentor, his designer, his sporting director, his mechanic, and now his race engineer. He is completely, totally isolated.
It creates a fascinating scenario because it effectively corners the greatest driver on the planet. Max Verstappen is a fiercely loyal creature to his inner circle. He famously said on the record that he would not race if GP wasn't in his ear.
I remember that.
Well, GP is gone. Marco is gone. Max has 3 very real, very disruptive options right now. First, he activates that performance escape clause and just follows his engineer straight to McLaren.
Wait, really? Zach Brown has been courting the Verstappen camp, sure, but would they actually do it?
Zach Brown has been aggressively pursuing them since 2024, and now he has the ultimate bait GP himself.
But would McLaren even want him right now? I mean, they already have Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri locked in. Pushing one of them out to make room for Max would blow up the incredible team harmony they've built.
That's very true, which is why option 2 might actually be more realistic. He goes to Mercedes.
Toto finally gets his man.
Exactly. Toto Wolff has been desperate to land Max to fully heal the wounds of 2021 and fill that massive void left by Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah.
Mercedes has the engine package for 2026. Maybe they lack the aerodynamic finesse right now compared to McLaren, but the power unit will be strong.
Okay, so McLaren or Mercedes was third option.
There is a third option, and this is the rumor that is gaining serious traction in the paddock right now. He simply walks away.
Are you talking about a sabbatical?
Exactly. He takes a sabbatical at age 28.
That would be insane.
But we saw Alain Prost do exactly this.
Oh, in 92?
Yes. Prost hated the politics at Ferrari, took a whole year off in 1992, and came back to Williams in 93 to win his final title.
Wow. History repeating itself.
Max despises the current regulations. He has absolutely nothing left to prove to anyone, and his racing family has just evaporated. Why would he stay and fight an understeering overweight car for 6th place in a crumbling empire?
He wouldn't. He'd just go sim racing full time.
Or he steps away, races GT cars, maybe does Le Mans for a year, and waits to see which F1 team actually nails the next regulation cycle before he commits.
A Max Verstappen sabbatical would completely break the driver market, just shatter it.
Utter chaos.
But let's look at the destination for a second here. Because if Red Bull is the sinking ship, McLaren is the luxury life raft picking up all the survivors.
Yeah, they really are.
Here is my question, though. McLaren didn't need GP. I mean, they are already winning races. They have a stable of absolutely world-class engineers.
Right.
Just look at Tom Stallard operating brilliantly for Oscar Piastri. So what is the actual end game here? Are they just hoarding talent so their rivals can't have them? Like, buying up all the properties on a monopoly board just so Red Bull lands on empty spaces and goes bankrupt?
I get why it looks like that, but I think framing it as just talent hoarding really minimizes what Andrea Stella is actually building over there.
Okay, elaborate on that.
Yes, depriving Red Bull of their central nervous system is a phenomenal secondary benefit, obviously. But when McLaren brings GP in as chief racing officer, he isn't going to be sitting on the pit wall talking to Norris or Piastri about tire temps.
Right, because the chief racing officer role sits above the individual race engineers.
Precisely. He is being brought in to elevate the entire macro operation. He will manage the engineering philosophy across both sides of the garage. He'll coordinate with the factory in Woking. And crucially, he will relieve team principal Andrea Stella of the day-to-day racing duties.
Ah, so taking the heat off Stella.
Stella has been carrying a massive load. He's essentially acting as both the strategic leader and the operational boss trackside. By bringing in a heavyweight like GP to take over the racing operations, it frees Stella to look at the 5-year horizon. He can deal with the FIA, manage the corporate politics, focus on the big picture.
It is a masterful division of labor.
But, and this is where it gets incredibly spicy, if we connect this to the bigger picture, there is a massive undercurrent to this specific hire that the Italian press has been all over recently.
You're talking about the Ferrari rumor.
You know it.
We have to talk about the Ferrari rumor because the word in the paddock is that Andrea Stella is highly coveted by Maranello to eventually replace Fred Vasseur as the team principal of Ferrari.
That's the one. And this is exactly why Zach Brown is operating on a totally different level to everyone else right now.
He's playing 4D chess.
He really is. By hiring GP, McLaren not only delivers a fatal blow to Red Bull's trackside operations, but they instantly build a bulletproof succession plan.
Oh, wow.
Think about it. If Andrea Stella gets an offer from Ferrari next year that he simply cannot refuse, McLaren doesn't panic. They don't have a sudden leadership vacuum. They just promote Gianpiero Lambiase directly into the team principal role.
Because he'll already be integrated.
Exactly. He will already know the culture, he'll know the car's development path, the 2026 data models, and all the personnel.
It's essentially corporate insurance.
It's the best insurance policy in the entire sport. Zach Brown and Andrea Stella are proving that a positive, well-structured, relentlessly ambitious environment attracts the absolute highest caliber talent in the world.
It really is the polar opposite of the chaotic exodus happening at Red Bull.
Completely. McLaren isn't just trying to win the 2026 championship here. They are building an empire meant to last for a decade.
It's just staggering to watch the shift in power. I mean, if you look at the raw facts of where we are, the contrast is glaring. We've gone from Red Bull winning absolutely everything, locking down their personnel with ironclad contracts and dictating the terms of the sport, to a reality where their most legendary race engineer is jumping ship.
Yeah.
We are watching a brutal, high-stakes power struggle over exactly when his contract ends, with McLaren essentially waving a blank check to bypass the gardening leave.
And Red Bull, helpless to stop the momentum.
Exactly. We are watching the real-time crumbling of the Red Bull empire, block by block, mechanic by mechanic. And through it all, McLaren is executing this genius strategic master plan, building a fortress of engineering talent that makes them virtually immune to future poaching.
It is the most thrilling off-track battle we have seen since the Spygate era, honestly.
That's a huge statement, but you're right.
The psychological warfare, the contract maneuvering, and the strategic foresight are just as intense as the racing itself. And the ripples of this single hire, just this one guy, will dictate the aerodynamic and strategic direction of two top-tier teams for the next 5 years.
It really will. And, it leaves you with something huge to mull over before the next race weekend.
What's that?
GP's departure shines a massive spotlight on a truth that often gets ignored when we just sit down to watch the broadcast. Formula One is fundamentally a team sport, played by brilliant engineers operating in the shadows.
Absolutely.
We celebrate the drivers, right?
Right.
The gladiators in the cockpit.
Yeah.
We focus on their braking points and their brilliant overtakes. But if the guy talking to the driver's ear is worth a multi-million-dollar buyout, years of strategic boardroom planning, and might genuinely be the catalyst for the world's best driver to abandon his team.
It makes you wonder.
Yeah. Exactly. Are we really watching a driver's championship? Or are we just watching an engineer's chess match, playing out at 300 kilometers an hour, where the drivers are really just the most visible pieces on the board?
That is a phenomenal way to look at it.
Keep that in mind the next time you hear a frustrated radio transmission on race day. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.